Okay, well, welcome to your August 28th online Rotary meeting. Um, I believe, let's see, so we'll start with the Pledge of Allegiance. Let's see. Chat. Here we go. Okay. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, I'm going to sit. Please join me if you'd like to, but we will want to acknowledge anyone in the Rotary family that we should keep in our thoughts. Has anyone heard of anything that we need to know about? Okay, hearing none, we'll take a moment and send out good thoughts to all those who need them today. Okay. Oh, don't need to do that. Okay, so no major announcements. I think I don't know if anyone's on that knows exactly, but I believe we still need some volunteers for Miracle League signups for Saturday and maybe a few Sundays. And then still looking for volunteers for the committees, for Rotary committees, if anyone has any desire to be on the volunteer committee that kind of will handle these types of things like the Miracle League and Special Olympics and those things, let me know.
I can speak to Miracle League.
Oh,
I
good.
believe it's just on Saturdays. It's just from 10 to 11. Next Saturday, though, for the holiday, or this coming Saturday for the holiday weekend, there is no games. I believe
Okay.
there are a couple of games, maybe two more Saturdays after. Rotary is not signed up to be volunteers, but they never turn volunteers away. So if you want to go and be a part of that, you certainly can. But I believe that Karen, the 2 weeks that she emailed about were these last 2 weekends.
Oh, perfect. Okay. Well, again, if sounds like we can go if anybody has a desire, I sure would love to get there with my kids.
I will probably be there with my daughter. So
Okay.
if
Awesome.
you want to go, you can find me and I can help you
That's great.
join into the fun.
Okay. Thanks, Kate. And again, so volunteers for committees, I think there are the 4 committees we're trying to beef up. But other than that, I don't have any other announcements. Does anyone else have anything they'd like to talk through before we hear from our speaker? Okay. All right, Lisa, I'll pass it to you. And then Eric, I'll pass to you to be able to share your PowerPoint. Welcome.
Sounds great. Thanks, Kate. This afternoon, everybody, we have Eric Kress. Eric is a nonprofit and community leader with background as a human services executive. Previously, he's been the executive director for both the Waukee and the Greater Des Moines YMCA. But today he's coming before us as the Central Iowa Workforce Development Board executive director, where he provides leadership to the board charged with local workforce system strategies by developing relationship with state administrators and staff, local businesses, economic development leaders, and workforce partners. He supported the development of career pathways and access to training and supportive services for individuals with barriers to gain quality jobs. I've had the opportunity to work with Eric the last couple of years because I currently serve on the Central Iowa CEO Workforce Development Board representing Story County. So with that, I will turn it over to Eric for his presentation today.
Thank you guys so much for having me. And Lisa, thanks for giving me an introduction. I really appreciate that. So if you feel like you've never heard of the Central Iowa Workforce Development Board before, you're probably not in the minority there. So we have a kind of an emerging system, and part of that is getting the word out. And so really hope to help with that today. And thank you so much, Lisa, for inviting me and putting me on this. Um, I've been a member of the Waukee Rotary. I'm not currently a Rotary member. Maybe I need to now after today. Thanks for this reminder of the great work that you do. our group met in person when we met and we sang songs and we did happy bucks and stuff. So I was kind of wondering how you were going to do the singing songs and hand out the manuals and doing the happy bucks online, but it doesn't seem like that happens online. So, anyways, again, thank you so much. I'm going to share my screen and put just a little bit of a I would say a pretty base level presentation together for you today. So as Lisa said, my job is to be the executive director for the Central Iowa Workforce Development Board. So what's Central Iowa? As it relates to this, we are these 8 Central Iowa counties that you see on the screen. So that includes Story, and sometimes we describe it as Polk County and all that touch it. So we are one of 8, or we are an 8-county area. We are one of 6 in the state of Iowa. So there are 6 local workforce areas in the state of Iowa, but there are hundreds across the United States, as the local workforce area is a concept of the federal WIOA, Workforce Innovation and Opportunity Act. So this is a federal structure for local workforce system strategy, if you can reconcile that. As it relates to furthermore about our organizational structure, we are governed at the local level by a consortium of county supervisors. And that's where Lisa comes in, as you can see her name here on the list. Each of the counties we serve appoints one of their county supervisors to provide that leadership for the local workforce board. How the work gets done, however, is through the volunteers that they appoint to serve on the local workforce board. So this page shows a list of our volunteers that serve. I'm the only staff member for the Central Iowa Workforce Development Board. But I do work for these 19 volunteers. One thing that I really like to call out about the board structure for the Central Iowa Workforce Development Board is that it is very strategic in its composition. There's a pie chart here and a little graph to the side, but some of the uniques about it is that our board is 50% plus 1 representatives of business. That may seem obvious, but I think oftentimes when I see, coalitions about workforce and happening throughout the area, they're typically pretty leaning heavy on training providers or economic development. Oftentimes it's the businesses that don't have the time to show up, or they don't get to the meeting. So therefore they may not be driving conversation and strategy for the workforce board. So I think that's one of the uniques here, is that 10 of our 19 members are representatives of business. At least 2 of them have to be of small business, but 10 have to be a business. Additionally, when WIOA was put together, their thought is, who are all of the other entities that need to be a part of shaping local workforce system strategy? And so would note we have to have at least 1 member of higher education. And so that's where the president of DMAC comes in. We have to have at least 1 member of economic development, and that's where the Greater Des Moines Partnership has a seat. We have to have at least 1 member of local unions. We have to have 1 member of a registered apprenticeship program. We have to have 1 member of a community-based nonprofit, which is where United Way comes in. And so what I want your takeaway to be is this is a business-driven board, but it brings into consideration who the key training providers in the area are, the economic development influence, and other considerations like that to create a strategic group of people to drive workforce strategy in the area. So for the board, our mission and vision is to build a quality workforce for today and tomorrow. We drive collaborative partnerships with businesses, job seekers, and providers to create an area where every worker achieves a livable wage and a sustainable career. So we want people to get good jobs, and they can be self-sustainable, and they can be in control of their future. We want to make sure that the talent is connected to employer needs, and so that training systems are designed, careers are promoted that lead to the needs that we have in the community. And then this opportunity to do advocacy and encourage impactful policy changes to be made that support those goals. But more than anything, the board's role, I saw a sentence down in a little bit further here, it says, is really to create an integrated, ever-improving workforce development system. The local workforce board is, I would call it a matchmaker, or it's a navigator. We don't run all of the workforce programs in central Iowa. In fact, we don't run any of them. We even only have direct oversight for one program, and that's Title I activities. But our goal is to try to make sure that you are available of the various resources in central Iowa that can help for workforce needs, and that we're able to connect organizations that share that similar interest or have a stake in that to work together and reduce duplication of work and hopefully have their needs met. So more than anything, this is a systems board, and it's one that, if done well, is really serving as a matchmaker and a connector throughout central Iowa. Um, Before I mentioned, there is one program that we highlight a little bit more than others, and that's called the Title I programs. And that's because the local board that I serve and that Lisa has accountability for has the financial liability and responsibility for this program as well. And that's the Title I Adult and Dislocated Worker Program and the Title I Youth and Young Adult Program. These are really special programs because they are case management programs that help people that have barriers to employment develop employment plans, assess their skills, do career exploration, provide workforce reskilling and training as needed, help them get jobs, can provide them with supportive services for things like childcare assistance, transportation assistance, and then inevitably provide follow-up services once they've gotten a job to make sure that they're successful. And so about $2 million a year comes into central Iowa from the federal government and is the oversight through the chief elected officials like Lisa and the board that were appointed to make sure these get to the people that most need them in our community. And so we have local influence on who we work with. One of the things that I'm really excited about, especially as it relates to the Ames population, is that YSF, Youth and Shelter Services, is the provider of this youth program now as of July 1st of 2024. And so they're now the hub of this activity, and we can leverage their extensive program and facility infrastructure across central Iowa and how they already serve homeless. They serve kids in foster programs. They can serve kids with mental health and behavioral needs, and can co-enroll them in these activities now to help them not only meet those needs, but also help bridge them into employment. So really excited to continue and build upon our relationship with Youth and Shelter Services. I'd also say rapid response is something that unfortunately is becoming a big part of this program as well, in this dislocated worker program. As layoffs are occurring, the local board ensures that programs are reaching out to those businesses that are having mass layoffs and trying to help reemploy those that are impacted by those mass layoffs and jobs. So if you ever have a large layoff event in your community, connect with Lisa or myself or your Iowa Works office, and we will make sure that we're working with that business to try to get their employees reemployed. Certainly the event of late that has had the most exposure on that topic is the closure of the Tyson pork production plant in Perry. The Iowa Works office, so how does that all relate? The Iowa Works office is really a one-stop center or human services, or yeah, a human services campus for various programs that serve job seekers under one roof. And the idea is that all of these independent programs are working well with one another, and but there's no wrong front door for the job seeker as they step in. And so you end up with a group of approximately 15 programs under one roof that are delivered by different agencies. So for example, you can see, again, I mentioned Youth and Shelter Services is delivering the Title I activities. The Senior Community Services Employment Program is delivered by two other organizations. The Title II Adult Educational Literacy Act is delivered by DMAC. And so under the roof of Iowa Works, the local board makes sure that these organizations are working well with one another and that we're ensuring that they're accessible. They're providing referrals and they're trying to coordinate their outreach efforts. However, we do not oversee any of these entities. We only oversee the contract for this Title I services. So we provide direct program monitoring and we could select a new provider for this. The rest of it, our role is to coordinate services. Now, not all of our workforce activity or strategy happens through Iowa Works, but it is the hub of our workforce system for Central Iowa, and the Iowa Works office is the only job center that we have currently in the Central Iowa area. We also, and this is where the local board comes in handy, is we really want to make sure that even these program providers are then connecting to our community-based programs, because government programs in their own do not have the capacity to meet all of our workforce needs. So we need the organizations like the Ames Alliance and your United Ways of Story County and your other organizations and nonprofits out through the community to be part of this work. And hopefully we can create ties between those programs and these providers for referrals and co-enrollment of services as well. So why local workforce boards? Local workforce boards drive the vision at the local level. We don't want all workforce strategy to be state driven. We don't want all workforce boards to be or all workforce strategy to be federally driven. So this is a local voice and input into your workforce system is what the board does. We're business led, as I talked about earlier, and we steward federal funds, and we create a critical role in promoting, sustaining, and growing our regional economies. I did add a couple slides in here that I thought might be good for today. These are the required functions of a local workforce board. On the screen, there's a lot on here, and I probably don't have the best color scheme to read it off of your screen. I apologize for that as I look at it now. But other things the local workforce boards do is they require that a 4-year local plan is created. We interpret workforce regional labor market analysis through that local plan. We can convene, broker, and leverage workforce development system stakeholders. Like today, we're trying to convene and provide education, out there of how you can get access to your local workforce system. We do the same with businesses, coordinate with post-secondary education and program, and so on and so on. So there are these 17 requirements of local workforce boards. So what does that mean to you? I thought today, I'll take some questions here in a minute, but I would share what are some common resources that are out there that I think all of you might want to know about. One is that there is a labor market. Oh, I just noticed that my hyperlinks did not carry into this presentation, but I can get those to you in the chat. So there's a labor market site that's free and accessible to all Iowans and businesses, and that's a great place to go to learn more about the demographics of people and various your workforce, the available labor, the industry, employment or job employment of various jobs, demographics of the community and who works in those areas, average wages, unemployment rates. There's really a great wealth of information there that's free for all of us to use. There's an Iowa Work site that it's a place people can go for looking for jobs, a free job search board for all businesses, and some information on there. And then a couple other websites here, Iowa Workforce Development's home website. There's a program called ECI, or Employer Council of Iowa, that does some free monthly webinars and in-services and things like that related to providing various business supports. Your community college has a website that has some great information and programs to work with businesses to create customized training, including one that's very popular right now about integrating English language with acquisition with job training. And then I just put other resources is just to remember that your economic development partners, your ethnic community-based organizations, your community nonprofits are all great resources for you and your workforce needs. There's many great ones out there, and I can help you potentially navigate those for you based on what your interest or need is. And Ames, you're very blessed to have the Ames Alliance, which has a very strong um, chamber, very strong economic development track record, and are part of your local workforce system that we communicate with quite a bit. And then the last thing I thought I would share before I just take questions, I guess a couple is, what are some of the recent workforce trends that we've been seeing of late? I think one of it, especially with all of the layoffs, is the importance of English language acquisition, the importance of digital literacy. These are really, for those of our employees that do not have those, they're very detrimental to regaining employment if you are laid off. And as we see an emerging uh, labor force of newcomers to our community, oftentimes we need to create bridges to make sure that they have the proper English language skills or computer skills in order to get into the workforce. So that's a real hot topic right now. Skills or competency-based hiring is another trend. This is really a shift for people to not think about nonlinear um, learners and people that maybe weren't able to come up through the traditional education system as people like maybe myself was, where we were able to go through public school system through 12th, K-12, that get into college, get a college degree, get a job. But there's people that have come to our country at different times. There's people who have been dropouts. There's people who have a very successful track records of employment and are qualified for jobs today, but they are not able to get those jobs because they lack the qualification in terms of the degree, maybe despite that they had military experience or despite the fact that they have 20 years of work-based experience, but maybe they're lacking that 4-year degree that's required in order to be qualified for that job. And so there's really a call right now for businesses to think about, are all of those things historically really needed, and how you go about making your hiring selections or figuring about how it can be more inclusive for people that have the skills, but maybe just their resume doesn't look the way that we're used to seeing or that we create our job descriptions off of. Work-based learning is a big topic right now in a way that businesses can really be involved. Work-based learning is anything from career exploration to job shadowing to paid work experiences to internships to apprenticeships. But just again, another way for potential employees or current employees to learn more. And then unfortunately, we've seen a big trend of late in agriculture and layoff events. And I listed a few of those businesses below that has to make all of us in Iowa nervous. And so finally then, how to get involved. You could serve on the board or as a committee member for the Central Iowa Workforce Development Board. Myself or Lisa would be great people to talk to. And to serve on the board, you would need to be a representative of a business that's hiring employees in in-demand occupations or industries. But we do need board members. Right now, I know we have at least one really strong board member from your community, and that's Abigail Miller of Ag Certain, but we would like to have more. You could get involved in your local chambers and nonprofits. I really would like to call out Youth and Shelter Services. They do great work and they have many ways that you can be involved as an ambassador, a volunteer, or a donor. As it relates specifically to workforce, it's always great to have businesses that will also open the doors to youth that might need places to go and do job shadowing or to do a work experience or potentially to do an internship or come to a program and share about your job and your industry and what you do and help others understand how they might be able to fit into that as a future profession. Get advocacy for the things that you believe in, for the things that you really believe are preventing workforce and economic growth in the area is another way that you can be involved. And then I'd say being innovative and piloting new ideas. We know that there's been low unemployment for a number of years now and for a long period of time. And so that may require us considering hiring differently and doing new things in order to meet our workforce needs. And so encouraging people to really think out of the box and try new things that make work and jobs more accessible for workers. So that's really what I had to share with you today, and we thought I could leave it open now for any questions that you may have. And if I don't know the answer, I'll be happy to try to find and follow up with you. So are there any, who has the first question today to related to anything about workforce, or even your comments or opinions or ideas that you'd like to share? How about this for some fun? How about, hey Karen, how much time am I supposed to take again? Do you remember?
You're good on time. I mean, you have another, few 10 minutes if you need it.
Okay. How about a couple people that would be willing to share what their first job was? So my first job was a busboy at a country kitchen restaurant when I was 16 years old. Through that, I learned a little bit about, showing up on time, customer service, hard work, doing dishes. Who else out? Could someone else share with us their first job that they had and maybe what you learned from that?
Eric, I can share my first job, but I also have a question for you. My first job was working at a bakery, um, and just learned just definitely about being on time, safety that's involved at a bakery when you're utilizing the bread slicer or making donuts
Yeah.
at 5:30 in the morning. So just all the safety precautions that I have. So my question for you for the group is, so you have a region, the Central Iowa region that you work for. So can you explain a little bit how you reach out to all those different counties within that region? Is it all through the local workforce, or is it all dependent on the CEO board to know kind of what's going on in those communities, or what type of notifications do you get when there's when business is going to be having a large layoff? What are your next steps to do in that process?
You bet. There's a few questions kind of all embedded into there. The easiest one to talk about is on the notice of layoffs. Businesses that do a mass layoff are required to communicate with the state of Iowa that's coming and provide a list of the employees, the types of jobs that are impacted, and provide a notice at least 60 days before that event. And so the state of Iowa will get that and they will send it to our local area and we'll receive it. And then locally, we have what we call a rapid response team, which consists of multiple programs in that local office. So it's a cross-functional or program team. They will then contact the human resources department for that business and try to figure out what access they're going to be willing to give us to their employees. The more access we can get to their employees, the better, because then we can have them fill out work information forms to help them understand help us understand their demographic and background, their qualifications, their wages, what they make. Also provide information about what types of jobs they may be looking for. And that can be very challenging or easy, just depending on the industry. But for example, a layoff that may happen for a business like Wells Fargo, which is primarily going to be college educated people and kind of the banking, or can transfer into a lot of other jobs. Typically, they don't need as much help as or reskilling or retraining as a group of people like we talked about in Perry that may be laid off, that job may be attached to their citizenship. They may not have English language skills. They may not have a high school degree. They may not have digital literacy. They may not have transferable credentials. And so that helps us inform. And those that have the bigger barriers or more really need the access to their employees so that we can, before they're laid off, try to help them navigate. So that's kind of the effort about a layoff event. In terms of outreach into the communities, I've been in this job for 2 years now, and I don't think we had a plan at all, really necessarily when we started. There was a lot of orientation of our board members and our staff and such that needed to happen. I think we're doing better now, but efforts today, like Lisa did, using our chief elected to open up, as a county supervisor, open up a network like this where I can have a conversation with you all. I'm really hopeful that one or two of you then ask for more information, and then we have a dialogue after this, and that might connect us to some sort of partnership with your business, job placement of a job candidate, or program co-enrollment or something along those lines that could happen. Um, there are also some staff that do work for those various programs or the state as a whole that are business engagement consultants, and they're doing some outreach on their own, and they're going out and meeting with businesses and doing site visits and things along those lines. So there are multiple entities within the system doing outreach. But what I'm trying to do is really help coordinate that and really leverage our board and our board members to make those connections, and then economic development partners. I think someone might have put something in the chat about Ames Alliance. Not totally sure.
Yeah,
Describe
I can
workforce.
redo that chat if that would help. Describe workforce effort in Ames and relationship with Ames Chamber Alliance, who has a person coordinating in this area.
Okay, so I've been in a few resource kind of networking groups of Nikki Fisher, who it sounds like is actually moving on to a new role now, but Nikki provides a lot of the economic and workforce help issues, not just for Story County, but also does some work in Boone County. So she's been like a key person where I've talked to, and we'll talk about, what are the events they have upcoming? How can I promote them? What are some of the workforce initiatives that they have going on? Maybe reaching out because they had a very similar reskilling grant for participants that has been going through that Ames Chamber, and we've talked about connecting them with like the Title I adult activities to see if they can share costs of things. When they've had some local job fairs, I know our Title I youth in the past, you might have heard that as Connect to Careers youth activities. This has now moved to YSS, but come and participate at those job fairs and things like that. So my key relationship previously has been Nikki, but it looks like we'll be kind of transferring that moving forward. And then child labor. Great experience. Okay, someone shared their first job and what they learned. That's good. And, that topic, and Lisa mentioned a little bit about safety too, but that topic about workplace safety is one that sometimes requires advocacy. As you think about child labor laws and people working younger into rules that go into, where you can work and what times you can work, or making sure you find the right businesses to work for that are providing a safe environment, getting best practices from maybe your unions or your organizations out there that can ensure workplace safety. That's a topic in itself that um, is a good one for advocacy.
I have a question. Okay, good. I'm not muted. I can tell you my first job was at 14 at Burger King, but I did have years and years of babysitting before that. And it taught me that I don't want to work at Burger King. But I do actually, it taught me a lot about scheduling and customer service and just being beholden to the public. But I heard you speak a little bit about child care and finding those resources as you're looking at placement. What kind of relationships do you have with child care centers, or is it through the state? And how do you approach that?
Right. When I was speaking about childcare most directly, I was speaking about it in the context of supportive services, and that if you have eligibility to be enrolled in one of these programs and you're working towards your job, your achieving your employment plan, if childcare is going to get in the way of someone achieving that, we can help fund their childcare so that they can get to their class at the community college or get to their work, the start of their job or the high school equivalency class that they need or things along those lines. So so it's funding in that case, but there still needs to be a connection made between that person who needs childcare and who's going to provide it. A couple other things though is you can look at the career pathway. Some of our issues with childcare is that it's not a sustainable job in many cases. And so there's a childcare shortage, which partly at times with their childcare shortage is because they don't have workers, quality workers to do the job. So there's an aspect of this that we can look at that career pathway and promote things like apprenticeship programs where people might get some credit by working in your schools or in your school-based childcare for a provider that works towards their inevitably getting a career in teaching, but just trying to promote that job or advocate for sustainable wages for childcare. Third part of childcare that's another part of childcare that's really tricky is it's too expensive. And so there's spots that are available oftentimes, but they're not affordable for individuals. And that's now where you get into this, well, why is it not affordable? Because you have to pay staff who are already not getting paid enough, therefore, but you want to pay them more. Well, how do you do that? Um, and so I would say right now, like just childcare is a workforce issue for a number of businesses and people. But it's a trick in how to solve that right now because there's not necessarily um, there's not a lot of I'm trying to make sure I say what I say isn't too slanted, but just um, yeah, how do you make it affordable maybe without government subsidy is maybe a question. And but then again, promoting resources that might be out there. I know the state last week offered and launched a new childcare kind of clearinghouse website that's available for people to find childcare. But access to childcare, access to transportation, access to housing are three needs that are a challenge across central Iowa.
Thank you.
And each one of them kind of at certain times has its own coalitions. And so a lot of times, sometimes what I do is meet with some of those organizations and just be an active voice for some of those initiatives that are happening in central Iowa. Thanks for asking a question. Warren says there are a number of immigrants or refugees coming into the area. Do you support their getting employment? Very often, if we can engage with them, the hardest part is to engage with them and build bridges. There's oftentimes when newcomers come into the area, they may not be entirely trusting of things they perceive as government entities or organizations. They may not feel welcome going into a place like Iowa Works, or they may not have access to get there because it might not be convenient to them logistically. And so sometimes the challenge really is developing relationship, and then you have a language barrier that you have to overcome many times in order to work with that individual. So most effectively, if we can try to find ways at times to work with their community-based organizations, I think of organizations maybe like Embark that serve Burmese refugees, or the Refugee Alliance of Central Iowa, forming relationships with those organizations and trying to meet them in places that they're comfortable can oftentimes help in the provision of providing services and job skills to those individuals that we want to serve. In many cases, newcomers and immigrants and refugees will qualify for services because they'll often be what we call basic skills deficient, which means they may lack English language proficiency or a high school degree. And those are pretty much automatic qualifiers for most government-funded workforce programs.
It was really interesting, Eric. Thanks for such a great presentation. If you wouldn't mind sending me, I'm Katie, by the way, so I'll shoot you a message. How about that first? Even though my thing says Karen. But I can include the links that aren't hyperlinks in your PowerPoint out for everyone, just so that everybody can click on them and see what information they want more of. Really interesting. So thanks so much. And okay, I'll just go back into okay, I'm just gonna leave it here, even though I could make it big and pretty for you, but I think we'll close the meeting then. Thanks, Lisa, for introducing too, and everybody have a great week. We'll see you next week in person. Oh, no, I'm sorry. No meeting next week. It's Labor Day. So everyone enjoy your Labor Day, and we'll end with the four-way test of the things we think, say, or do. Is it the truth? Is it fair to all concerned? Will it build goodwill and better friendships? Will it be beneficial to all concerned? Have a great day, everyone.